Paul.
We're back, episode 8.
Yeah, the body's intelligence and decision-making and intuition power, yeah?
Yeah. And I just love how this fits into episode 6 and 7, where we've just talked about is understanding this purposes for change, that we're wanting to make this shift on purpose. We've talked about pattern recognition and the things that might be holding us back. And now we get to really launch into like, how do we make better decisions and utilize our intuition, our intelligence, our wisdom going forward to make better decisions that are going to reflect not only on us, but the people around us.
Yeah. And embedded in this episode is the truth, in our view. There are many ways of knowing, yeah? There is scientific, intellectual, reductionistic knowing, but there's also intuitive and existential knowing.
Yeah.
And there's spiritual knowing. And yeah, there's interconnected streams and pathways that are worthy of respect, even if we haven't personally walked those paths. There are wise elders in all the traditions that have multiple ways of knowing, that draw on the body's intelligence, innate wisdom, connection to nature, an understanding of the rhythms and patterns of energy in the universe.
And this is exciting because I think if you have an open mind in this view, you can tap into something that's great. There's an energy resource there available to you. And there's if you listen, there's a calling there that will guide you. And I'm firmly a huge believer in tapping into your intuition. Obviously, the difficult thing is, what is intuition versus what is anxiety or doubt, and how those two differ. I heard a saying recently that stuck with me, is that intuition will come as a statement and your anxiety will come as a question. So if you're doubting something, it will come as a question. Should I do this? And intuition is like, you have to do this. We've reached a point in time where this decision has to be made. You're making it. And I think we ask ourselves those questions when we're in our decision-making process. How passionately do I feel about this? Is this a statement? And a good friend of mine, Andy Smith, is like, is this a hell yeah? Get behind it 100%. Or is there doubt there? Is it a question? And if it is a question, if it is a bit of anxiety, then how do I tap back into my intuition? Is there a greater body of knowing there that I can tap into, an energy resource I can tap into that will help me decipher between the two? Because in my professional capability as a mindset coach, there's two big things. One is people walk in believing that they don't know what they want. I don't know what I want. I don't want anything. I'm stuck. And the truth beneath the truth is they're not. They really know what they want. They're just not brave enough to say it yet or to admit it. And we've got tools and ways to get that out. And the other thing is, okay, well, great. I feel like I'm recognizing that I'm wanting to make this shift. I have this vision in my mind of what life could be like and who I can actually embody and be, but there's a gap now between them, and there's a lot of decisions and actions that have to be made in between there.
And obviously in previous episodes we've talked a lot about that, the identity shift. However, I suggest we go a little bit deeper. So here's a phrase, right? Spirituality is the next competitive advantage in leadership. And my first response to that, Paul, and in a minute let's canvass your view. My first response is, yes, I concur that there's a truth in that statement, but it doesn't particularly inspire me because the deeper application of it is nurturing the human spirit is intrinsically worthwhile and essential. Yeah. So yes, it's great. It might give you a competitive advantage, but if that's the driving motivation and the only motivation, then I'd say that person is missing an aspect of wisdom that's relevant to this deeper knowing.
So the issue there is the competitive advantage is almost like a win at all costs sort of thing. Is that spirituality is being used in that pursuit versus nurturing the human spirit goes a lot deeper. It's about the core of your being and who you are and what we can elicit, what we're capable of. Yeah?
And therefore the reality that nurturing and integrating spirituality into your workplace and family and personal settings really matters. Yes, you will get advantages, and yes, things will grow and expand and uplift for you. That's a side benefit of a deeper purpose. Yeah. What is the core reason that nurturing the human spirit matters? Not just to get a competitive advantage, but that's a nice side benefit of doing this well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we do this? I'm happy to share some examples, or you might want to speak to it.
We talked about this off air, but when I walked in this morning, I noticed in the car I had a bit of weight on my shoulders, and I wasn't exactly sure where it came from. And I think when we go through these sort of exercises, it's like just releasing that, that as soon as I feel the weight now, I say, I'm not breathing. And it sounds ridiculous to a human being that we breathe. That's what keeps us alive. We breathe, we don't think about it, we're not conscious about it. What else are we not conscious about that we do? Mm-hmm. Okay, so a part of our journey, a part of tapping to any spiritual advantage that we might see, and I'm just talking about decision making here, not sort of competitively, or not to win, not to take advantage, not to manipulate. I'm just saying, like, to feel better in us, in our core, is that...
Yeah, I'm walking my path with ease and grace.
Yeah, is that we have
and how do I know it's the right path for me?
We have to lift some of this weight.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, Peter has got this really good thing, which is the grounding exercises. I guess essentially it's breath work, and through something that Peter does called the leadership circle. We always sit there and we do that at the start of every session. Before we record podcasts, we do this at the start of every session. I'm going to encourage Peter to record this as its own segment, its own little episode that he can put out, so everyone gets the benefit of that. But just quickly, if you could, just a very short, condensed, I've got some weight on my shoulders right now, Peter. Can you help me just breathe and lift it?
Well, we could, Paul, but I think for the audience, we need to just unpackage that word spirituality with a little more clarity, right? So part of spirituality, for my experience and journey, is just clarity of intention and purpose.
Okay, but if I'm sitting there, I'm listening, I hear spirituality. I might be linking that to religion. I've got my own connotations of spirituality. What I'm saying is, what the people, if you're sitting in your car, if you're at your workplace, if you're at home, you're watching this on YouTube on the couch, it's interesting that you just flick past the letting go before you wanted to dive into something so big as spirituality. I know that we want to define it, but are we in a position to let this in right now? Is what I'm saying.
Absolutely, yeah. That's why we started a podcast called Shift on Purpose, and it's why we're open and genuine about emerging themes and ideas that are real for me and presumably for you as well. But yeah, if you're saying, is it a good use of our limited 20 minutes to run through 4-step breathing, visualizing, progressive muscle relaxation, self-nurture technique? Probably not. Again, I'd encourage people.
I think that's its own episode. I'm saying right now is just, if you're listening, just do me a favor. Just have a few nice deep breaths and let it out in through the nose. It's out through the mouth.
And laugh.
And just do 4 or 5 of those. Let's not hold on to the baggage right now. We're about to open up the really exciting part of this podcast about this 20 minutes. I just want you to be open to it. I just feel a lot better by having that breath.
Yeah. And again, the website, the www.peterdoorcoaching.com, it'll give people structure and content around some of these themes, and the 4-step breathing technique is very powerful. So is yoga, so is meditative practice, so is many grounded nature, indigenous cultural practices that you and I may or may not have come across, but they're real and they're powerful, and deep respect to anyone on any of the spiritual paths that are available. So spirituality for some people is difficult to ground in everyday behaviour, right? It's embedded, but they're not consciously aware of it. So if I may, Paul, I think I'll talk about some metaphors that integrate the aspect of wisdom, the aspect of intellect in a modelling way, with for the same reason that deep mythological tales get told generation after generation after generation after generation through raising of children. The elders share the knowledge. And centuries and centuries of traditional stories and ways of being are transmitted that way. That is an example of a spiritual practice embedded in the way someone's life unfolds. So in modern Western workforces, again, what I mostly see is the horse and the carriage metaphor playing out, right? So think of a beautiful stagecoach from a couple of hundred years ago. Maybe we'll go right back to Cinderella at the ball. And there's these four magnificent white horses harnessed to the stagecoach. And in this beautiful ornate coach, there is some energy, something, some presence, yeah? So in the modern workforce, we're very used to the power of those four horses because they're the intellectual, action-driven behaviours that produce outcomes. And so those horses are essential in our journey through life, through work, through family, whatever it is. We need drive, we need motivation, we need strength, we need determination, we need raw power and energy to move in whatever direction we decide to. So following that stagecoach metaphor, those horses can charge forward in any direction. But that power, that raw capacity, is equally capable of being whipped into a frenzy and they charge us over a cliff, or they careen the carriage around a rough old track and the whole thing collapses and rolls over. And this is what we see time and time again when workplace organisational settings and or family or community settings where purely the outcomes are driven by attachment to the horses, willpower, ego, determination, strength. We're not dismissing any of that. It's necessary and appropriate, but it needs to be integrated with wisdom. So using this as the metaphor, the wisdom sits in the carriage, right? And I'm going to suggest for the purposes of this discussion, the wisdom speaks constantly to the driving horses in a beautiful, soft melody, if you like, a cadence. Horses have a rhythm and cadence. They're either charging or they're trotting or they're cantering at a gentle walk. There's a cadence and a rhythm. The whole universe runs on cadence and rhythm and cadence and rhythm. And that beautiful voice in the carriage, which I'm saying is a metaphor for wisdom and deep spiritual knowing, speaks in a soft feminine voice. And it's never shouting, it's never demanding, it's never aggressive and ordering. It's just constantly saying, stop, soften, listen. Stop, soften, listen. And that has deep meaning at many levels, yeah? We'll just let a listener reflect at what level they want to respond to that deep feminine voice and inner knowing, a wisdom in the horse and carriage metaphor that constantly encourages stop, soften, listen. Now those horses are still quite capable of charging forward and making harmful, driven outcomes, careen into the trees, crash over a cliff in a frenzy of charging. But eventually in the fullness of life and the journey, those horses will start to hear that voice, yeah? If they don't destroy themselves first. And that voice is always there and always available, yeah? And when that wisdom, the owner of the carriage, if you like, that deep spiritual inner knowing, is integrated and harnessed with the horsepower of action and doing and determination and courage and strength and self-belief, that's all beautiful energy those horses bring to our lives. However, without the integration of the wisdom, it's almost a pointless journey. It's simply drudgery along a random path. Yeah, and so in your leadership journey, that's one of the biggest changes I've seen in you. You've always been strong in the horses. I mean, you're a champion athlete. You do CrossFit challenges. I think you told me you nearly got on the podium recently. You know, it's great, but you're not attached to that as an outcome. That's just keeping the horses fit and active and capable, right? And the entrepreneurial businesses you've built, all the good stuff. However, life has reminded you, and you know, I think sometimes life will bring us these learning experiences in the form of little metaphorical slap in the face school of hard knocks.
Yeah.
Life has reminded you, as it does for me and virtually everyone I engage with, stop, soften, listen. And the choice is, are we building rituals and routines into our life that allow us to hear that beautiful inner voice in the carriage more and more clearly. And when we do hear it, are we able to honour and integrate that more fully into the alignment with the horses that we're mostly schooled in. Most of Western traditional business training is how to get more out of your horses. Yeah. So
if we're listening to the horses and the horses, we can only hear the galloping, then we're probably not in alignment.
Yeah. And some people haven't even jumped into the carriage yet. They're still waiting at the station. Oh, I wish my horses would get going. So congratulations if you're out there. The horses are doing some stuff. You're nurturing your family. You're investing in health and wellness for yourself. You're building relationships. You've got some entrepreneurial ideas, or you're just doing a fair day's work for a fair day's pay in a salaried role that you're really committed to. There's many pathways for the horses to take us forward, and beneath all of that, there's a deep inner wisdom and knowing that needs to be integrated. And again, most Indigenous cultures prioritise and know how to nurture that first, and the horses are far less the priority, and the nurturing of the human spirit and the ecosystem of love-based connection, and then the outcomes come secondary to that. Not attached to the outcome.
At that point, they're more open to listening to the intuition that's coming through. Is that we say, like, the final spiritual connection is that the calling, the intuition to go on, so that you're aligned. You know that you're pointing the horses in the right direction.
Yeah. And yes, it's a fair perspective. You're deeply connected to a sense of calling, but it can just also be interpreted as what uplifts me. When I amplify my personal power through love and light and peace and beauty and truth and trust and freedom and joy and creativity and a sense of union, there's a whole body experience that uplifts cellular energy, if you like.
It's important to not focus this all on success, a successful outcome. It's to define your success of being, I guess. That's what I brought it back to last few months again for me, is childlike play and wonder. Have fun with this again. Treat life as a bit of a game. Be less serious about everything, but more intentional about things. And maybe I'm listening to that wisdom a little bit more than I am being deafened by the horses.
Yes, and horses out of control, where that inner beautiful melodic cadence of that feminine wisdom, if you like it, an integration of masculine and feminine knowing, which all human beings have both. But if we allow a world, a business and ecosystem world, a modern geopolitical world, if we allow it to be purely driven by the horses charging forward, we get language like crush, destroy, hate, fear, war, and just say those words out aloud repetitively enough and feel the energetic shift in your body. Feel the difference between the energetic patterning of those contrasts. So yes, how do we integrate that ability to charge forward and achieve outcomes that the horses are necessarily good at, which is part of who we are, without crushing, destroying, overwhelming.
We need love and joy and bliss and connection and all the good things.
And it's not an abstract concept. You come up the emotional rungs of the ladder, like we talked about in episode 2 perhaps, how to shift out of negative states back into positive states, how to break the link between negative thoughts and negative feelings, and how to even be aware and acknowledge that there are many ways of knowing. And the scientific Western reductionistic model is one arm, one aspect, one thread of knowing. However, left unchecked, it'll just allow the horses to charge over a cliff. Integrate it. Stay on the path, brother.
Stay on the path.
And again, go to the website, check out the concrete examples of tools that nurture the human spirit, which is why we've created some of this next level conversation.
And breathe. Lift that weight off your shoulders. Peter's going to do the breathing technique podcast, and we'll all be good. See you later.
See you later. Check out peterdoylecoaching.com. Have a good day.